like to see a future direction that includes infrastructure and some type of mixed use potential zoning of the town center. We already have the Cracker Barrel, which is a pre-existing non-conforming mixed use building. And then 711 through 713 Main, which is, I'm not sure if anybody's living there now. I think it's all business, but it could be mixed use. So I think our vision is more of a mixed use town center where there's, you know, some shops or food or, you know, some type of retail, small business that complements the town common and the feel of a town center where people can come to the town center and have a couple things to do, hit a couple of shops, hang out at the park, hit the trails. So that's kind of our vision. And we wanted to make sure that that vision is potentially addressed by the Master Plan Steering Committee. Just so there's a placeholder that the town kind of has a direction to head towards. Because we feel, I mean, we haven't done an official survey, but I don't know, people on this board could talk that, you know, all my friends, you know, people with younger kids would like to have this kind of walking town center with, you know, shops or food or general store, some community space. You know, I know that Emily Winter from the Cracker Barrel was interested in having a community space, but she can't really do it because she doesn't have the septic capacity to do that. So we feel as a town moving forward, having that infrastructure and mixed use ability in the town center is the direction that we should go. So we just wanted to make sure that that was pointed to in the Master Plan Steering Committee. And anybody on the board, if they want to add anything, or Bob, if you want to add anything.
I just wanted to add that when we met with, what was his name again?
Mark Sprague.
Mark Sprague. When we met with him, it sounded like they were looking at it really big and broad, like the whole business district of 117 to 495, and that it just seemed overwhelmingly and not feasible. And so when we kind of talked as our committee, we kind of thought, well, what if we just broke it down into little sections, you know? And so we focus on the area around the town common to start, and then, because that seems like the best, you know, starting point, and then go from there. So I think that was sort of what we had talked about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's certainly one of the things that we've talked about in terms of doing any kind of assessment of what would be needed with regard to infrastructure. I think we need a better understanding from you folks about what constitutes, as Amy just said, the town center and how you see that evolving. You know, certainly we got the same sort of feedback in our survey that people are interested in, you know, amenities in town, restaurant, little shop, multi-use, and serving the area around the common to give it that sort of feel. And you're absolutely correct, at least with the two existing properties, the grandfather properties, the Druids' property, and then the Winters property diagonally across the street. There are clearly significant septic system issues. And they vary in amount and degree. You know, Emily Winter has basically a tight tank right now for a septic system, which is not the best of all worlds by any means, economically or environmentally. You know, there's a great limit on what you can do with that. And then the Druids property, as you know, is right up against Great Brook. So septic is a challenge there. And certainly when I was working on the infrastructure for the town common, I did have conversations with them and with 725 Main, the house to the west of the common, about having a common septic system, frankly, at that point on the common. And there wasn't much in the way of interest about that. So we're kind of where we were. As we indicated in the information that I sent you on the water and sewer aspect of it, we are looking into that seriously. We have to look into it in terms of a broad sense, and I don't mean necessarily area, but we're looking at town land behind Sawyer School in that area with respect to potential municipal uses there. As you know, the DPW is in a very constrained area, not a real appropriate area. It's highly congested down where they are. And we also have potential need, which was also articulated in the responses to the survey, for a community center. And that's an issue at either end of the age demographic spectrum. The seniors are phenomenally limited in what they have, basically one room on a limited basis in one building. And there is precious little indoor activity room for anybody other than the seniors at this point. Of course, there is outdoor with the common and the pavilion, but other than sports, outdoor sports, and what the schools present, there's not an awful lot there. So we're looking at the capacity of the wastewater treatment facility, the municipal wastewater facility, which is at this point, in absolute sense, is running or is permitted at about 50% of capacity right now. It's permitted at 38,000 gallons per day, and it's using, actually, has legal statutory input of less than half of that. So there is a significant amount of capacity left in that, and we need to look at how that might be handled with respect to other municipal facilities, which is fairly straightforward because they are municipal facilities. And then as we look at going out into either residential or business in town center, then we have to look at it from a sewer district perspective, which means changing the way it's done, and looking at what the infrastructure requirements are to expand that, and what would we want to define as a sewer district. And that's where a better definition of what that economic development multi-use area would be, so that we can look at that. Now, there are I wouldn't say cheap, but there are much less expensive solutions than the traditional, sort of massive wastewater system with large piping and so forth. We right now, if you look at the information I sent out, have a system that surprisingly to some operates on 2-inch plastic pipe. And that actually works very well, the way it's handled. Each building has a septic system, and that septic system has on the output of what's referred to as a grinder pump, which makes very sure that anything that comes out of that septic system is ground very finely and then runs through the 2-inch pipe. And there really haven't been any issues. And I might add that Harvard, in the last 6 years, had gone through this process with their town center, connecting all of the residences to this same type of system. As a matter of fact, it's frankly even simpler. They don't have septic tanks with each residence in each building. They actually have the pump, basically a macerator pump that comes out of each building, and goes into a 2-inch force main, and then ultimately goes off to the sewage treatment the wastewater facility. So there is technology out there, but I think a couple of things we need to understand again, what your thoughts are with respect to what that district would be. And it would, and again, I have to get some legal advice on this, but based on conversations we've had with DEP and the designer of the existing wastewater facility, anybody who is along that wastewater line has the right, and as a matter of fact, in most cases is forced to use that if there's a failure of their septic system. And that's, DEP has that sort of balanced perspective that, yeah, it's great to have recharge on a local area using septic systems. It gets the groundwater or the water back into the ground in a recharged distributed area. But at the same time, if you have a wastewater treatment system that is very carefully managed and monitored, your assurance that what goes into the ground is very much appropriate and meets all of the requirements of DEP and ultimately EPA. So there's a couple of issues. So when you define the district, you got to be careful that you don't gerrymander it. That if it's going to be a district, it needs to be reasonably clean. But keep that in mind when you define what you're looking for. Now, the water side of it, I'm not sure what your thoughts are with respect to that. We're looking, as that presentation indicated, at public water supplies. And there are areas, again, behind the schools and conveniently, in areas that would otherwise be unbuildable, closer to wetlands, that would permit a public water supply in that area. So there could be a public water supply as well. As far as how that infrastructure would be developed in terms of piping and so forth, we haven't explored that, whether they could be put in separated by an appropriate distance, perhaps with safeguards in the same trench. I don't know, but that has been done in some cases in the past under more constrained conditions. So that's something we're looking into as well. I think one of the things that we learned in looking at water is that if you're looking at putting a public water supply in, you ought to think very carefully about fire protection at the same time. I've had that conversation with Jeff Legendre. He is justifiably concerned about the availability of water, particularly in drought conditions. He's actually looking to run some test wells to see if he can find a location in town where there could be an emergency drought condition water supply for the fire department. But again, that involves trucking a substantial amount of tankage around town in order to fight a fire. Looking at that, we've reached out to Lancaster, which has recently extended their water system. And interestingly enough, it's right up against Bolton. They actually did test wells in the Still River area down at the bottom of Forbush Mill, the intersection of 110, where the aquifer is absolutely terrific. I mean, it's literally artesian water, a lot of water down there. But in doing that study, and I've been dealing with Scott Miller, who's their engineer, they have concluded that if you're going to dig public water supplies, the real cost is in the digging. And you really ought to think about putting in fire water as well for that sewage district or that water district. So that's another consideration. Having said that, I was flabbergasted at the cost. They were talking in Lancaster for individual connections at the extension of $35,000 a residence, which is not insignificant. On
so
the other
hand, that's including piping and everything.
Yeah, and actually, Eric, piping is not a big piece of it. It's digging through whatever you have to dig through, and as you know, Bolton is not exactly a nice sand pit. Part of it is, but not the part we're looking at.
True, yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. But I guess, if you can provide input on the area and the types of things you're looking at.
So this is a great discussion to have. And like Amy said, the feeling we were getting from the Master Plan Steering Committee is we thought they were just looking more globally. Now that you're talking, it sounds like, with the infrastructure wise, you definitely are taking a really detailed approach on it. But I think the piece where we could help out, like you were saying, is really defining what we envision as a town center district. I don't know. Are you guys really talking about that too much? It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, I think certainly from water and sewer, we have been, yeah.
But like as an overall mixed use,
No.
how we, yeah.
No, but you're absolutely correct. And that's something that we need to get involved in, looking at the whole
Right.
planning and zoning perspective.
Yeah. It does sound like you're taking great steps on the water and sewer and looking at all angles, which is great. So what were you saying?
That sounded more encouraging for sure.
Yeah. But so I think what we can do, and this is good to hear from you, is maybe over the next couple of months, the EDC can take a look at what we envision as the town center district and then feed it back into your committee. We definitely, I mean, this is something that the town has to be on board with. That's why we wanted it to be a part of the master plan steering committee. And, it's a great opportunity now to say, the town does want a town center and, whatever we need to do, surveys, yeah, I mean, naturally you would think the town center would be from, I guess, like Harvard Road to the Country Manor. I mean, sort of. I mean, but we can narrow it down too. If you want to narrow it from Manor Road to, I don't know which house, but
626.
Yeah, 626. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So Manor Road to 626. That's probably a good town center where, we have to talk about zoning and mixed use. I mean, we don't want to we don't want to turn it into something like a Route 20 or anything, but like around the town common, at least, to have the ability to be mixed use, that would be good. I mean, even if, I don't know, I don't know.
Would we also be able to get access to the survey results that were done? That might help us, like, as we're starting to draft together plans. I mean, we can do repeat surveys, but maybe ours could be even focused based on the results that you guys already collected.
Sean, that's up on our website.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Yeah. So I guess, that's, we'd have to think about it. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head now, because all I really had in mind was the Druitt's property and the Winter property. But maybe that whole little corner needs to be looked at,
Yeah. And we kind of scratched our heads and thought about, well, we really feel that there's a great opportunity with those two properties. And is there a way that we could connect up with those properties? And I'm, at this point, we haven't come up with a good idea that that's sort of the water and sewer infrastructure version of spot zoning. We have to.
Yeah, I mean, because once you go to a private residence, then you become like a sewer district, and there's all kind of legal ramifications.
And so if we run a pipe, if we make it a sewer district and we run a pipe down Main Street, then everybody not only has the opportunity to tie in with an appropriate connection fee, and certainly that connection fee will include part of the capital cost of the overall system, but if their septic systems fail, they will be connected to that, whether they particularly like it or not. So we really, as looking at a district, you got to think about the whole district as you develop not only the infrastructure, but the actual wastewater treatment facility per se.
I think that sounds great, because I think we also need to think about the future in terms of our development too, right? In terms of, it's great if we have properties now that want to have these options available, but only a couple is, again, only going to get us going for now. But to understand, long term, what the impact could be of having the appropriate infrastructure would really allow us to grow, that much more. And I do know there are grants available. We are an economically distressed town, and so there are grants available. I don't know if they're focused more on community and town centers. Ours might be a little bit small. They may be looking for, enticing bigger businesses to bring in, but there may be small grant opportunities where maybe we can focus on the infrastructure element and see if maybe that's something we could work into a proposal at least.
Yeah. And I think, we've got to be careful about how deep into the weeds we get. I'm licensed mechanical engineer and project manager, and I have a tendency to see the solution to the very end, and I got to resist that. We have a limited amount of time and limited resources. So I think where we would be is, here's the current situation. Here are the town center objectives. Here's a reasonably good definition of what constitutes town center and what the vision of town center will be based on input from, and there are any number. I mean, there's an EDC survey, there was a town common survey, there were the surveys that I was involved in the early 2000s, and the most recent overall master plan. And they all indicate that people are interested in that. And I think, if you want to do more surveys, it'll be confirmation surveys more than anything else.
Right. Yeah. So that's basically, I mean, I don't really have too much more to add besides we just wanted to make sure that there was a placeholder in the master plan steering committee. For, like you said, we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty details in the master plan steering committee, but have a rough idea of what we consider a town center and what we want there. And then in the future, that would be a box for a planning board or whoever to fill that in with the details.
Yeah, but to your point, I think it's much broader and worthy of considerably more consideration in the big picture in the little town center. What are we thinking about multi-use? What does multi-use mean? In case in point, just at the very highest level, if you put in restaurants are a whole different kettle of fish than anything else going into a wastewater treatment facility. You got to be careful about that. The whole idea of who's going to manage this thing, we need to think about that. Again, it's not reinventing the wheel. There are people who recently have gone through this, nearby towns, and take a look at that. And then, what do you think the implications are of multi-use in this particular area? I would guess that residences would become multi-use, business and residence, things like that. And what types of businesses would go in, and what does that mean to the infrastructure?
Do you guys also have a date that the steering committee would need to have like a write-up or proposal from us? I mean, obviously we want to get moving on it as soon as we can, but is there a hard date that we really need to have a proposal?
Well, yesterday, reasonably soon. I mean, not a final proposal, but it'd be nice if you could put your thinking down on paper and get it to us. The other thing that is mentioned in that thing that I sent you, the presentation that we made to the steering committee, is the fact that as part of, or as an extension to what's referred to as the 15th year review, believe it or not, that wastewater treatment facility is just coming on 15 years, and DEP requires that there be a very detailed engineering and operational review to determine its current condition, how well it's been operated, whether it needs to be upgraded, replaced, expanded, etc. But a second part of that contract that has just been signed by Don Lowe on behalf of Randy Heglin is to look from a professional perspective of the expansion of that wastewater treatment facility to other uses. What's really there, what additional capacity is there, what does that mean, what types of facilities could tie into it. So again, that's going to start, let's see, Wright Pierce is going to be finished, I believe, in about 45 days of phase one, 15th year review, and then they'll start it. So nominally, they would like to have their review of this whole thing, the whole ball of wax, including downstream expansion or additional application, in 100 days. So anything that we can get in to inform those guys of what our thoughts are, we really ought to be driving this to be.
So actually, maybe Valerie, you could find this too in Erica's files, but she did do a study of different sections from, I think, from Manor Road, even from Harvard Road to the HUD housing, of how many bedrooms, and the amount of flow. And even if we consider the Druids property a restaurant or Cracker Barrel, I mean, so she did do some studies on that. So we could definitely include that, you know, in different potential town centers. But I don't want to keep everybody for too long. So Bob, I think this was great information, and I think we have a good direction now of what you would want and need from us. The initial thought, you know, we were just talking about, you know, writing a letter on a very high scale last meeting. So I'm glad that you came, and I think you really honed us in on what we would need to get you guys. So I think it's been very helpful, and hopefully in the next month or two, we can put together a little proposal of what we consider a town center, mixed use, infrastructure included. And I'm happy to hear that it does sound like on infrastructure that you guys are really looking at all the details of trying to get those areas tied up. So
Yeah, and we really did encourage the Druidses and
yeah,
the brick store to somehow figure out how to
yeah,
turn it around.
yeah.
Brian, have you got anything else to add? I've been the talking head here.
Yeah, I actually just had a comment and a question. So the comment is, we wanted you to be aware that we're hoping to have an initial public forum to present some of the ideas from the Master Plan Steering Committee like early in the summer. And so one thing you might want to consider is if you have your proposal or even just like a visualization of what the town center according to the EDC looks like, it might actually be really great for us to just get some initial public feedback on that at that first forum. And then the other thing is, I was going to ask a question, which is the EDC planning to do backyard Bolton again this year? Because if so, the Master Plan Steering Committee, I think, would be really interested in trying to have a booth, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times, just to like get input from folks.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have it. I'll definitely get a slot for you. Yeah.
Eric, do you know when it's going to be?
What we've been doing is we've been doing the like middle of August, end of August, and beginning of September.
Okay.
Not doing Labor Day weekend and trying to avoid the Bolton Fair. Basically, that's what we do.
I will say there've been a number of requests for public restrooms. So if we do a town center, having any type of restroom around the town common, I'm sure people would appreciate.
Oh, I happen to have all of the numbers and all of the designs associated with that. That was an original proposal for the town common. But we started looking at the cost of doing that, and the trust had run out of money a long way before.
Yeah.
I actually have a number of questions as well, just as I get acquainted with Bolton and thinking about the master plan, and this kind of bleeds into our next agenda item as well. But I'm wondering, have there been any other plans or studies done around a market assessment or business districts, like the economics of a business district? Have we?
I don't think, not that I know of. I mean,
that might be important, right? Just to understand if Bolton can sustain what size of mixed use. Just wanting to think into the future of not wanting to create more business fronts than what we can really support. So that might be an interesting, study to have done, and there certainly are grants to do that. Has there been any sort of water infrastructure feasibility study that has been done to just look at the aquifer or think about what flows we might want to have or might need to have in town?
I mean, Bob maybe could answer that better, but I know that's always a concern on the planning board, especially, I mean, I'm sure it's going to come up, huge with the 40Bs that are coming in, the amount of water that's available in that area and all along 117. I know in generally Bolton is a fairly wet town. So unless you have a really shallow well, there hasn't really been much issues with losing water, but I don't know. Maybe Bob could answer. I don't know that there's really been a overall study besides knowing where the aquifers are.
No, there really hasn't been, other than we've looked into potential well problems. And that was another thing that was in that presentation that I sent over to you folks. And even although there have been anecdotal cases in which wells have had to be re-drilled or extended or whatever, and that it was as a result of groundwater elevations lowering. That's incorrect. That in fact, the only reason that those wells have been deepened or added to is that they basically wanted to use the well shaft as a reservoir rather than have it above ground. The only issue that really has turned up is lawn irrigation, which turns out to have a huge load on wells, often substantially more than the residence itself. So that's one thing that we thought was worthy of looking into. And it's not a matter of stopping it, but a matter of developing some guidelines for the appropriateness, because lawns tend to be overwatered. They tend to be use turf that is not appropriate for this environment, things like that. But there really haven't been any problems with, or very, very few problems, except in extreme drought conditions with shallow gravel wells.
Right. Yeah, I think like some are maybe, very older residences with very shallow wells, are they really the only ones?
But precious few of those.
Right.
I know this is
But
a bit
again,
of a,
there's a lot of water in those aquifers, and it just needs, and that's something we need to think about, that if we're going to have a public water supply, we need to think about the radius around it.
and another question too, and this is a little bit of a politic question, but what is if someone can kind of describe to me the tenor of water conversations in town, and if, I mean, for example, I've worked for other towns that have had some tension between residents wanting to see food businesses in town, and then some leadership understanding that that would require a lot of a huge financial obligation on behalf of the town, essentially in order to support businesses. And so there's a bit of, I've seen in the past, a bit of tension between, taking residents' tax dollars to support businesses. And some folks, are concerned with that. And I don't know if that's an issue in Bolton, or if residents are understanding of this and see this as an increase in quality of life for all, or if this is
on the planning board. So on the planning board, businesses taking water hasn't necessarily been the concern, because we don't have much business. But whenever any type of development does come up, like the planning board a few years ago tried to pass a cottage overlay district, of like a more dense zoned living situation. And that came up a lot, is the water concern, neighbors around it. So in that case, it does come up, which is why I said when the 40Bs come up, I'm sure that's going to probably be one of the major talking points. But the way we're kind of zoned right now is, there's just not a lot of business in town. So that particular discussion hasn't really come up of, supporting businesses with water and stuff like that. But in general, it is a discussion point in anytime there's like a big development or any, dense type development.
Yeah, I think the community. I think
I'm
the
sorry,
community. I'll be quick. I think the community focus, and my hope is, that the backyard Bolton, the markets we've been doing, help to kind of bring that community aspect in, which I think you connect the young and the older generation, so it becomes less about whether you financially want to support it as much as you are actually getting a direct impact from there. So we're not coming up and saying we want developers to come in and create this huge business, area that's going to bring in all of this. Yes, it is great to bring in, the tax revenue that comes with it, but it's a difficult sell, I think, in a town like Bolton because of the financial impact immediately, right? That taxpayers are going to feel, on top of, well, what am I actually getting out of it? I'm going to get more traffic. I'm like, these are the things that I'm going to have to personally deal with. But when you focus it on a community town center and keep it about the people and bring them to an area where they can actually enjoy the business, they can, like we've done with Backyard Bolton, my hope is that it will be a little bit more advantageous to the overall community when it's focused in that way.
And then ultimately, to your point, Eric, you really have to put together a very detailed financial pro forma. And find out, and back to Valerie's point, you can't build it and hope they'll come. You've got to determine that, yeah, there's a really good reason, you've got the necessary infrastructure to support it, and this is the rationale that a person developing a business is going to do it, and they'll do it in accordance with the guidelines provided by the town. So, and again, there are all sorts of experience resources in Harvard and elsewhere where they have done all those pro formas and taken a look at what the capital cost would be, what the connection costs would be, what the overall advantage to the town would be in terms of tax dollars for business, but the additional amenities for your case around the town common, making it more walkable with those amenities. So, a sewer district study committee would have to do all of those things and be very, very transparent and get lots of very specific input on that. But yeah, that's going to be.
I bring up the businesses and the tension between residents benefiting and businesses benefiting, because I've heard this committee say that you want mixed use development, so you're asking for both water and a zoning change, right? So there is pretty quickly going to be that tension of who benefits.
For sure.
Yeah, and I have seen other towns try to first get their zoning in place before they bring water in, because as soon as you bring water, development can.
Yeah, well, town meeting's coming up. You'll get to see. There's definitely tension.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
But
thanks, Brian. Thank you.
But I think that the best approach to that is to get the overall perspective in place before you start bringing up individual elements of it, so that people can see the big picture, understand the pros and cons, and more importantly, understand that the Economic Development Committee and the overall master plan group are keeping all of this in mind, and they're pretty much transparent about it.
Yeah.
Keep people engaged continuously and accept their input and incorporate it in your evaluation.
Well, so I mean, I don't know how much into the nitty-gritty details the EDC will get in this first 2 months, but we will definitely paint a broad overview picture of what we envision.
Okay.
And I think that's the master planning committee is more about the overview and for the future. I mean, I don't think we're not the planning. You're not the planning board or CBA. So I think it's just setting our direction.
Okay. No, that's great. Incidentally, one detail, if I recall correctly, some time ago, and I'm not sure who sponsored it, there was a study of sort of the street view of town center that the selectmen and the planning board commission, and that's got to be in our files somewhere, because they actually had artists' perspectives of various ways that town center might look, and people reviewed it and provided comments on it. So I thought that was a very interesting approach. Instead of looking at a map and looking at a balance sheet or a pro forma, you actually looked at kind of the real thing, which incidentally helped us enormously on the town common when we got a charrette together and had people start looking at it with an artist sitting there drawing it up. It made a huge difference.
So I don't think any of our vision is like, it's more of a small business community, as Sean was saying. Like the kitchen sink candle company is like the perfect business that we have in mind. That way you can go downtown, you can park, and now that the planning board passed community parking, if we could have a fine community parking, so each shop doesn't need its own parking in front. There could be some shared parking that was passed a few years ago. So you could park, you can hang out at the park, you could go on the trails, you can go to a couple of shops, you can, hit an ice cream stand. I mean, that's kind of what we're envisioning of, just the idyllic small town center where you can just go there for the day and have fun, so, and not just be a place that you drive through.
Nope. And emphasize that.
Yeah.
So that people don't get the feel of I don't know who mentioned it, the Route 20,
Right, I said that, yeah.
Framingham.
Because I don't think anybody want that, you know.
No,
We don't want, you know,
yep,
a CVS and an Outback Steakhouse probably, you know, or whatever.
Well, I
think
can make
it's
sure
either-
it's on our agenda for our next meeting to really work on that kind of proposal,
Yeah.
so that the master plan committee can have that for the June public forum.
Yeah, I think maybe a subgroup of us, and we could talk about it on email. Subquorum will work on it, so we can have something to show the overall committee.
good, okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up any more of your time.
No,
Good,
that's,
thank you very much.
thank you for coming, Bob. That was great.
Bob?
Good enough,
Thanks.
right?
All right. Okay, Valerie, now we were going to talk about, what else were we going to talk about?
I think it was just our work plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was our 2021 work plan, outreach, business tracking.
Yeah.
and,
So, let's see, off the top of my head, you know, it's already April. And so I kind of start planning for the backyard Bolton in like May and June to get that. So that's a major focus of ours. We have to look at the brochure we have and see if that needs to be updated. Rick's not on, but he's kind of been taking charge of that. You know, we continue with the Facebook. And one thing I really wanted to get going, and I've been saying this for years, is on the webpage, I would really like to get some small business focus on that, whether we had like a small business corner, even if a place we talked about, if somehow we could create some Google Doc or something that businesses can put their description and stuff and contact, and then we could just easily pump that into the webpage. So that's something I would like to work on. Yeah, I don't know, just whatever we could do for community outreach. You know, we, as a committee, we haven't really, I know in bigger towns like, you know, Marlborough and stuff, we used to have Mike Murphy on this committee, and he was on the Marlborough Economic Development Committee, and he would talk about things they would do in Marlborough, which like we were talking about a lot of nitty-gritty details on economic, you know, just, I don't know, I don't even know the terms. I come more from like of a marketing outreach, but, you know, so I think that's the approach we take. You know, I think we're more of like a chamber of commerce versus really digging into tax benefits and stuff like that. I don't know that we have the expertise to do all that, but maybe we have to look into some type of study or something, if there's grant money to do that with different groups. I know UMass does different stuff like that. I don't know. So maybe we can engage. So you were talking about financially the town center, and maybe there is some grants or, you know, schools or something, you know, that could do some type of study like that.
I heard, I don't know if Erica had mentioned that she and the town planner from Stowe had applied for a grant through the Massachusetts Business Office.
Yeah, yep.
For a corridor study.
Massachusetts Office of Business Development, MOBD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And that was going to be for, I guess, east of 495 towards the town line. And unfortunately, we did not get funded for that. So kind of, you know, for better or for worse, I mean, I feel like it sounds like this committee wants to refocus on town center, and it sounds like that grant would have looked more towards the east side of town. So, you know, I'll keep an eye out for a few other grants that we might want to look at that would help us think about, you know, what kinds of businesses we can support in Bolton. And then also might, you know, consultants could also continue doing surveys to just see what kinds of businesses people want to see here. So we can take a look. And I know, you know, Eric, I know you had reached out to Jason from 495. I don't know if he has grant opportunities.
I'm not sure, but they are great. Have you dealt with them in Stowe?
Yeah, I have met Jason. I don't know that he remembers me.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they've come to, we kind of stopped doing it a couple years ago, but we used to have like an annual built-in business breakfast where the businesses, and we'd bring in speakers, and they've spoke at it a couple of times.
That's great.
And they've come to a couple EDC meetings, and they're really great. So maybe some of that economic, planning can come through them because they're more of like a regional group, So, oh, the speaker is cutting out a little.
Sorry. I know that they can help too with a bit of site readiness. So if there is like a large, vacant building or a site that is one of our, those target parcels for economic development, I know that Metro West is very good at marketing and making sure that site is posted to the appropriate websites. So that we can get, vacancies filled.
Yeah.
Do they also have any connections with any type of like rendering artists or designers that we could get a quick turnaround? Not necessarily like a full rendering of our idea, but even like, Bob mentioned, even something visual that people can see. Maybe if they can get that done quickly, just based on our initial like proposal or thoughts, that might be good to include.
Yeah, I mean, even if they don't, they might be able to point us in the right direction.
That's what I mean. Yeah, point us
exactly.
to connect us. Right.
Yeah.
I wonder too if there's some student group or a class at one of the regional tech schools or at the high school that is teaching economic development or teaching marketing, and they might want to help out in some way there, or maybe there's some class on graphic design, or some.
So actually, for the brochure, there might be some in the town hall that you see. The Minuteman actually did that for us.
Oh, really? The Destination Bolton, all that?
Yeah.
Or, oh,
No, just the brochure.
The brochure that goes with the website. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a trifold brochure.
Yeah.
So they did that.
That's great.
We gave them the vision of it, but they did it out for us. So Rick's son, he might have graduated. I don't know. His son was either in that. What'd you say?
Graduates this year.
Oh, he graduates this year. His son was either in that program or he knew the professor who taught or teacher taught that the digital media group in Minuteman. So we had that. But I know, like I said, UMass before. I think UMass has done stuff for the town. I don't know if it's free or not, or there was a grant, but I know they have students that do stuff as well for planning and stuff.
That's true. Look at that too.
Eric.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because you were talking about doing like outreach to businesses to get like a little something for the website. I don't mind doing that, but I feel like the list that we have is either like they're not even in business anymore, or there's a lot of home business.
Way outdated, yeah.
So if we had a more updated one that I could go by.
Are you talking about the master business directory?
Yeah, like it's hard to figure out like what businesses we have in town other than the ones that we know of, but there's so many that are sort of that we don't know of.
Yeah. So it is hard to keep track of them all because there's so many little businesses. That's why I was thinking if we could create a form where people could just where we weren't the middleman, or they could just fill it in, so we could just advertise on Destination Bolton that, hey, if you want to have some link on our webpage, and they can feed it into that. So we don't have to go out and find them ourselves.
Make it like Wikipedia.
Exactly.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Boltonpedia. Exactly.
There you go.
I know that Erica was compiling a master business list.
Yeah.
And I think that she was pulling it from the business certificates.
Yeah, right. Well, what Amy was saying, it is really confusing because there's like 300 of them, and a lot of them are people's home address, but maybe it's not here. It's like, so that's why,
you want on it. I mean, there's people that like, they have like catering businesses. I mean, is that what we're talking about? Are we talking to people with actual like storefronts?
Like brick and mortar.
Yeah. Well, I think it could be home business. Yeah, we could even have a home business section,
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the people who come to Backyard Bolton are home business. So, if we had a place that we could, collect those off, that would be great. So, I mean, it's just a lot of thoughts that have been banging around my head that just not enough time to implement everything that we talk about. So if Amy, I know actually I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe you were in this. There was a few of us who went to like the webpage class on how to run the webpage. Were you in that?
No,
No.
I would not have gone to that class even if I was.
Yeah. Well, I went to it and I learned just enough to
Not my
post
thing.
stories. I learned enough how to post stories.
I think Rick did that too. Didn't
Oh
he?
yeah, maybe it was Rick.
If
Yeah,
he was
Rick and I.
trying to listen to me.
Yeah, it was Rick and I. But the webpage is way outdated, to the point that I haven't really been sharing it that much because even all the pictures are old, So
I think that's another thing that we could have maybe somebody from the high school or
mhm.
I don't know if we can pay people, but like that's something that is
Yeah,
very easy for somebody that knows what they're doing to do.
yeah. We could talk about it more in the future, but I agree. Yeah. I think though adding somehow the small businesses to it would be good and cleaning up the pictures and stuff. Like I could change the pictures. That's not hard, but if it's something big, then I don't even have the time to
How
do
do
it
you
anyway.
think, what do you think the best way to collect that information is?
I think the best way is, I'm big into like Google Docs, just giving a link and posting on Destination Bolton and just saying, if you have a small business in town and you want to be a part of the small business directory, Bolton Small Business Directory, just post your, name of business, what you do, contact info, and then we can
Google
somehow,
Forms.
yeah, Google Forms. Yeah. Somehow then we can take that and pump it into the webpage. It's probably an easy automated way to do it. I'm not sure the exact way, but it's probably not too hard to do.
I'll look into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have an assistant who's very, very technologically savvy, so I'll have her look into that.
Yeah, your webpage looks pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, I think the best part of that website, just for me, has been the list of what you do when you're trying to start a business in town.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful just for me to get used, just thinking about what permits a new business might need, and it's been helpful just in my own workflow. So making sure that that's up to date and shows you viewpoint and points you in the right direction is really helpful.
So Valerie, there's a little bit of history. Everything we've done since say 2013, I think, when the EDC first started in like 2011, and we were just thinking like, how do you lower taxes? How do you lower taxes? And people were just kind of like turned off by, so that's all we were talking about. So we kind of refocused to more of a chamber of commerce, like I said, and how can we connect businesses to the community? So everything we've done since then is how to be more friendly to business, because Bolton's been known as not great for businesses. Business, that's kind of been the saying. But so everything we've done since then is to try to improve that. And the webpage was one of those things, is so they can go into one spot and be like, oh, okay, that was the thought, was to go there. How can we connect? What do we need to do? Because businesses don't mind going to planning boards, or they don't mind going to, board meetings, as long as they have a defined path of what needs to be done, and things aren't being changed on the fly, and goalposts aren't being moved. Just tell me what I have to do and how do I, what do I need to get there, and I'll do it. So that was our thought with the webpage, was how do we do that?
It looks great. But as long as it's all up to date, right?
Yeah. Which it's not.
Do you guys send out, welcome letters for new businesses, or do you?
Yeah. So we did that. We wrote letters for businesses, and it was supposed to be tied to new business certificates that they would send out. And I think it probably was happening for a while, but maybe Erica fell off. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to keep up with. So I'll vouch for her for that.
Yeah, there's like a million things going on, and you're going to be so busy with the CBA in the next 3 years. Who knows?
Yeah,
it's going to be going on for a long time.
Yes, it is. But I wonder if that is something because I think it's a great moment to kind of do that introduction. Say, hey, Bolton has an EDC. We have these resources.
That's exactly. Yeah. So I'll resend it to you. But we tried to put into place, we said the same thing. It was a welcome letter. We're so happy to have you as a business. We're the EDC. If you need anything, come to us. Here's our webpage. Here's our emails. Thank you for thank you for being part of Bolton. And that was supposed to be tied to every time a new business certificate was filed. Whether that kept on happening, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, there's always going to be more good ideas than time, but maybe that's another idea for a Google Doc, right? If I can put up an email address of a new business, and we have a form welcome letter, maybe a member could send it out.
Yeah.
Valerie, if you're seeing the business certificates come in, you might have the most visibility to as people are coming in. If you think there's one or two, that come in, and it might be good to have a kickoff event, like the breakfast that we do has been focused mostly on us just trying to bring businesses and kind of people in the community together. But if we did have like a new business starting, that could be a focus, of these events rather than having an annual, which if it works out that way, great.
Yeah.
Or we could even do it centered around a new business.
So
wonder
even
if there's-
I was just going to say somewhere in town hall, there's giant ceremonial scissors and ribbon, because we actually had ribbon cuttings like in 2013, 2014, 2015. But it just got to be like, we had a lot of turnover, and I think we have a bunch of committed people here now between, all of us here. And actually so Sean Woods is on here. I haven't said hi to him.
Are you new?
Hey guys.
But yeah, so he's been wanting to join as well. Sorry, Sean, I should have introduced you. I
That's
meant
all
to.
good.
And then,
It's all good. I sit
so
on
sh-
Zoom meetings all day for a living, pretty much.
yeah. So Sean's been interested in joining the EDC. So actually, this is a good point. So what do you think? Is this something you'd be interested in? I mean, you've heard the type of discussions we're having. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it might take me a little while to figure out how I can add value for you guys. I've sat on boards. I sit on a board currently, and I'm confident I can, but this isn't my area of expertise. So it's one of those things where I'd like to be a sponge for a little while and just help out where I can.
Right. So what I tell people for the EDC is there's like just a million. You've heard all the things we've talked about. We've talked about public infrastructure, marketing. We write stories. Amy does cool videos on Facebook. It's just like there's so many different things and ideas and stuff we have. Whatever you want to do and you feel comfortable with doing, it's just like take the reins and do it. That's basically how we do it, because there's more things than we have cycles for. So, and like you said, sit around. But if you say, hey, I have this idea for this story I want to write, if you like to write, I have this idea for a story, or I want to take charge of organizing ribbon cuttings. So we just brought that up. I don't know what you want to do, so just whatever. If you like what, if you're interested in what we're doing, anything you could help out would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to keep joining. I mean, do you guys have a certain amount of members or like open seats, or is it just kind of?
So we're always playing with a number. I don't even know where we're at right now, but we used to be 11, and then we only had like 5 people we can ever meet quorum. So we moved it down to 7, and then we needed more. We're always just us. So if you want to join, we will. If we're full, we'll definitely add more positions. We just adjust the official numbers so we can have quorum.
Right.
Because if the number's too big, yeah.
Right.
Just so you know, Rick's house is for sale, and it's under agreement as of now. So
so he's going to be leaving?
Moving out of Bolton. So I don't know where he's going, but just to know that.
Oh, so there's a spot available.
There you go.
I apologize for telling you without him here, but I
That's
don't
fine.
know closing, so it may be before the next meeting that he's
No,
gone.
that's fine. Yeah, people come and go.
Yeah.
Oh, we just moved here, so I plan on being here for the foreseeable future, and I do want to get involved. So,
Pete, there's only a few sick individuals who stay on these things forever, but people come in, get used up, and then it's like people get worn out with boards, So as people come in and somehow I'm still here, but I enjoy it. So
My kids are 1 and 3, so it'll probably be a while for me.
Yeah. I hate moving, so I am not moving anytime soon. So I guess until I can't climb up the steps, and that's many years from now.
I'm gonna have to jump off, but
That's fine.
Val, I'll connect with you offline to introduce you to Bolton.
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, Amy.
Oh, you're gonna do the video, Amy? That's awesome.
Yeah. But you too, Eric. So we'll talk later.
Oh, nobody wants to see me on video.
Yeah, if it could be radio, it's great. Let's do that. You got a face for it.
All right.
Um,
Okay, bye, Amy. So I don't know, was there anything else, Valerie? Is that kind of just wanted to get the general feel?
Yeah, that's really, it's great just to hear you all talk about, what you're interested in, what kinds of work you've done in the past, what you're interested in maybe doing in the future. I can try to bring a few more ideas to the next meeting. And
if you could structure this madness somehow, that'd be great.
No, you guys are you're doing really well. This is really great. And EDCs are always hard because they're much of the time, their staffs they're run by folks who are running their own businesses. And so that's hard. So this is great though. And it's really good to meet you guys and to hear your enthusiasm.
Yeah, we look forward to working with you, Valerie.
Yeah. Me too. All right. Well, if there's anything I can help out with or try to look for in the meantime, I've got a list here of some plans that Bob was mentioning and some other action items that he mentioned. So I can make sure that we're following up with a committee.
Yeah. So I think I'll start with just Sean and me, and then we'll touch base with you, and then we'll pull in. I just want to make sure, I think we're 7 or 9. I don't know what I just want to make sure we stay sub-quorum so we can have a working group and not be open meeting issues.
So if we do that, we're allowed to email and talk about it at least. So it's
just don't email the whole committee.
Right.
Basically. Yeah. Just
right. I think that there are 7 of you. So I think that if 3 of you are talking, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yep. Yeah, we just can't have discussions with quorum.
Or make a decision on behalf of the committee.
Exactly.
Right. So,
yeah.
Our next meeting is going to be early May.
So May 3rd is town meeting. So it's probably going to be May 10th then.
Probably not then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Sean, if you want to just join next meeting, and if you're still interested, then we can vote on adding you as a member. You can let us know, or you could just joining as you join.
Yeah. I'd like to join. I mean, if there's, I'd certainly like to be involved in the meetings going forward. And if there's a way I can communicate with you guys, not through Facebook Messenger, because that's not really my primary means of communication.
Yeah, I'll send you my email. Yeah, I'll send you my email.
Awesome. Yeah, just keep me posted on when the next meeting is, and I'll
sure. Yeah, it's nice meeting you, by the way. So
yeah,
where do you live? What part of town?
I live over on Fry Road.
Okay.
Over on the Berlin side of town.
Yep, opposite corner from me. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Talk to you guys on May 10th, and I'll talk in between on sub projects.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice meeting you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Kathleen.